Imagine standing in a clinical simulation room,
Yeah.
right? The monitors are blaring. You need to like calculate a dosage immediately, but your brain is completely frozen.
Yeah, you're just trying to remember if the plastic mannequin in front of you actually breathes.
Exactly. And for years, healthcare simulations just mixed that, knowledge gathering with total environmental panic.
Right, which is not ideal for learning.
No, not at all. But today, in this deep dive, we are looking at the new INACSL, that's the International Nursing Association for Clinical Simulation, and learning their 2025 standards for pre-briefing, which just mandated a pretty massive overhaul to how you get learners ready. Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, the foundational shift in the 2025 standards is recognizing that you really can't simultaneously cram clinical facts into a learner's head while they're panicking about how the equipment in the room works.
Right.
What's fascinating here is that pre-briefing is no longer just a quick huddle. It is now formally and mandatorily split into two distinct steps. You have Part A, which is preparation, and Part B, briefing.
So it's severing the book smarts from the physical orientation. I mean, it reminds me of a driver's test.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, like part A is sitting at home the night before, studying the manual so you know the right-of-way rules. And then part B is sitting in the car the next morning, adjusting your mirrors right before turning the key.
Exactly. And if we look at the cognitive science behind that split, it really comes down to managing cognitive load. When a learner's working memory is overwhelmed by sensory details,
Like, just figuring out where the crash cart is located.
yeah, exactly, they physically cannot process new clinical knowledge in that state.
Yeah.
So Part A is designed to eliminate that overload by driving cognitive readiness strictly before simulation day.
Okay, but I have to challenge this strictly before rule, though. Does this just mean assigning, like, more pre-reading or video modules? Because, learners skip homework.
Oh, they absolutely do.
Right, so if they just skim a PDF right before walking in, aren't we back to square one with cognitive overload?
Well, it's a real risk if facilitators treat it as just passive busy work. But the standard requires ensuring actual cognitive readiness. The learner must, actually demonstrate they possess the requisite knowledge to meet specific simulation objectives before proceeding.
Oh, wow. So there has to be actual verification.
Yeah. If they haven't genuinely completed the dedicated skill practice or the modules, they simply aren't ready for the mental demands of the scenario.
Okay, that makes sense. Otherwise, they walk in mentally overwhelmed anyway. But let's say they do the reading right. Their head is fully in the game. The physical simulation space still introduces a massive sensory shock. How does the new framework manage that transition?
Well, that is exclusively the domain of Part B, the briefing, which happens immediately before the simulation starts. The goal here is to build a safe container.
Here's where it gets really interesting because it goes way beyond, like, pointing out where the oxygen masks are, right?
Way beyond. Facilitators have to actively establish a safe learning environment by explicitly explaining the boundaries, detailing confidentiality rules, outlining exactly how clinical mistakes will be handled, and walking through the simulator's physical capabilities.
So you aren't just telling them to feel safe, you're structurally proving the environment is safe by removing operational surprises.
Precisely.
But even with that, I mean, if I walk into a room and have to talk to a piece of plastic, I'm still going to feel kind of ridiculous.
Which brings us to the fiction contract. This is a vital psychological agreement between the facilitator and the learner.
Wait, is this a literal contract they sign on a clipboard? Or more like an audience agreeing to, suspend disbelief at a movie theater?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's very much like suspending disbelief. It's typically a verbal, explicit conversation in the room. The facilitator explicitly acknowledges the inherent artificiality of the setup.
Okay, so they actually talk about it.
Yeah, it's saying out loud, like, we know this is a plastic mannequin. We know the pulse feels slightly synthetic. By naming the awkwardness out loud, they secure a mutual commitment from the learner to engage fully, exactly as if it were a real clinical environment.
That's brilliant. Getting the artificiality out in the open strips away the distraction. You don't have to pretend the plastic isn't plastic. You just agree to treat the scenario as serious.
You're building a psychological safety net. When they make a clinical decision, they aren't, second-guessing the realism of the room. They are fully immersed in the scenario.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Whether you are in healthcare or another high-stakes field, the 2025 standards are basically handing you a masterclass in human cognition.
Absolutely.
Structuring your prep into dedicated cognitive work, your Part A, and immediate environmental grounding, your Part B ensures you get the most out of your training.
Yeah, acknowledging that learning the facts and feeling psychologically anchored in a room require two completely distinct mechanisms. That's really what elevates a standard simulation into a transformative clinical experience.
And it leaves me with this thought. If explicitly acknowledging artificiality through a verbal fiction contract actually secures deeper engagement in healthcare simulations, could adopting similar psychological contracts improve our focus in everyday virtual meetings or corporate role-playing? Imagine officially naming the awkwardness at the start of your next everyday Zoom call. It might just be the secret to genuine engagement.